Technology, and I'm currently working at the University of Georgia in the Learning, Design, and Technology program. The big question that I've always been interested in is what happens when you take computers or other technological devices and you put them in the hands of young children so that they can explore and learn their subject matter a little bit differently, or maybe go a little bit more deeply into that subject matter. I was a mathematics teacher in high school and middle school for 5 years, and during that time I used a lot of technology to teach honors classes and some other classes, but in particular, this was in the 90s, we were still using programs like Logo and Geometry Sketchpad to really reinforce the idea of geometric construction and the relationship among the angles and sides and things like that in geometric shapes and figures. And that was really fascinating to me, the way that got at a particular concept that had been taught sort of the same way over and over again. This was a whole new way of seeing that concept or those concepts, and all because of a device, a computer. And now here we are 14 years later, and we've got handheld devices that allow us to do what we needed big desktop computers to do when I was teaching. And it fascinates me that students and children have this opportunity to enter into really new virtual worlds in order to look at concepts and to really solidify concepts and relationships within subject matter like geometry or mathematics. These devices have tremendous potential to allow children to explore and to do it freely, to think of a question, explore the question, test a hypothesis that they have. Like if it's geometry, they might think, well, I think when I make the angle like this, the side reflects that. Go ahead and test that. This device will let you do it, and there's no real punishment or something associated with getting a wrong answer. You just keep reformulating your hypothesis until you start to really get a robustness about that concept that you're exploring. In my experience, not just as a teacher for 5 years, but then in graduate school and working with teachers from more of a research point of view or more of a professional development point of view over time, what I found is that there is a significant gap between this vision I have for the way technology is going to be used in the classroom and the realities of the classroom. And one of those harsh realities is that there is an environment that needs to be created for children to thrive when they're exploring and discovering, because there's a lot of management issues and there's a lot of ahead of time work that has to be done and a lot of things to be thought through on the teacher's part, and that isn't something that would come naturally to a lot of teachers. And so that sort of led me down a path of figuring out, how do we bring teachers to a point where they're creating these environments and they're more comfortable with those environments, and it becomes more natural for them to think about the questions and the situations ahead of time that might arise in an environment where these things are happening. Look for problems. Look for areas where if you have a vision for how something should be and it's not happening that way, that's your indicator. Well, why? How can I go and start collecting data that indicates to me why there's a problem there? So if I have this vision for kids using technology, and when I go into classrooms I'm not seeing it, that made me start looking around and try and figure out what are the things that are getting in the way of that environment. If you're really interested, you're going to keep thinking about, is this really the way I want to look at it? Is this really the thing I think is in the way? How can I capture that? How can I express that to other people? How can I communicate this when I walk away from where I am and show it to someone else so that they're able to understand what I was thinking, what I found, and what it means?